got Porzingis, you got Holiday, you got Derek White, you got literally, I would say what, 5 guys can get you 20 points in a game?
I know people will say it's, only one guy. I don't believe that, Coach, that, one guy, those days are over, in my opinion. Like, a Bill Russell, a Wilt Chamberlain.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this, look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with the injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome in, a very happy Wednesday to you. GameTime Decisions on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. A very happy Thanksgiving, pre-happy Thanksgiving, actually, as we've got festivities planned in the next 24 hours. A lot of family, a lot of food, a lot of football, as we've got 3 NFL games to break down for you coming up over the next couple of hours, all kicking off, of course, with a classic as Chicago and Detroit will get ready to do battle early tomorrow. And then, of course, if you're looking to plan ahead as far as when should you serve dinner and not watch the football games, that would probably be best right there with that Giants and Cowboys game. If you're looking to miss absolutely nothing of any consequence, the Giants and the Cowboys will provide you a great window of opportunity to actually talk to those relatives you don't like anyway. Because get that out of the way, because the night game between Green Bay and Miami, well, now that is a game, I think, that is going to deliver on a lot of levels, as the Miami Dolphins, very much alive still in the AFC for an opportunity to make the playoffs. They'll be visiting Lambeau Field, the frozen tundra. Only let me just get this out of the way for folks who don't know. The field is heated, so there is no more frozen tundra of any sort in any way, shape, or form. And you will hear a whole lot about how Tua hasn't won a game in sub-40-degree temperatures and yada, yada, yada. And that's all fine and dandy, but the reality is this will be like a vacation in the Bahamas for Tua, coming off of just, 7 months ago in -6 degrees in Kansas City. So it's not as if he doesn't have experience in cold weather. The wind won't be a factor. There appears to be some snow in the forecast, but again, the field is heated. It is no longer a frozen tundra of any sort. So that game, I think, could very well prove to be the big upset of the day, but we'll have much more on Turkey Day NFL action leading into what should be a big Sunday of games with put up or shut up time. And speaking of which, let's not forget, we've got plenty of rivalries that we've got to break down in college football. Why is that? Well, it's rivalry week, week 14 in college football. And anytime you can give me Ohio State and Michigan going at it, Texas, Texas A&M, Auburn, Alabama in the Iron Bowl, I am all for it. You've got plenty of football coming up Friday and Saturday this week as we get ready, of course, for bowl season, as well as the very first 12-team college football playoff. And we did get the rankings, of course, last night, the preliminary rankings there. As you can see, not much changing in the number 1 and the number 2 spot. However, Texas locking down 3, Penn State coming in at 4, and of course, no longer in the number 5 spot is Indiana, as they ended up dropping. So Indiana has got an interesting quest here now as a one-loss Big Ten team, with the SEC blowing up last week there and being upsets across the board, including Auburn beating Texas A&M. Of course, Alabama losing outright to Oklahoma, which was a big head scratcher. We had upsets up and down, including Ole Miss losing to a 5-5 Florida team. What does that mean? Well, it means that Indiana got a reprieve, even though they weren't even remotely in the game against Ohio State. Well, it's going to be very difficult for the committee to hold anything that Indiana has done against them and not keep them in the top 12, provided they end up winning this weekend. So they are a big favorite, but we got to figure out what happens with Tennessee, who travels to Nashville to take on a very spunky Vanderbilt team that's done a really good job of upsetting just about everyone they have played this year as an underdog. They will be a big underdog in that game. And I, for one, am looking very forward to seeing what Josh Heupel and Tennessee can bring to the table, because that is the wild card that remains in the SEC. Will we get more SEC teams? Will we get fewer SEC teams? What will the committee do? There is much still to be determined here in this Week 14 rivalry week in college football. And then, of course, we've got college basketball, and we've got plenty of it going on right now. And what a day it has been already, as many people woke up this morning trying to figure out how in the world was Kansas an underdog last night against Duke. Well, if you watch the game, boy, that line was way off. Kansas handled their business against Duke, and boy, it wasn't really even close as far as I was concerned. Duke ended up getting bested by a better, or I should say, deeper Kansas team. And they handled their business as an underdog, which was great. But as we started the day early here, or we got a whole bunch of different takes here. We've got a different tournament, not just Maui, but now the Atlantis tournament underway in college basketball, as you got to love Feast Week. There is nothing like Feast Week, where you get the battle for Atlantis going on. You've got the Maui Invitational. You've got games in Vegas. You've got games in Fort Myers, Florida. You've got a little something for everybody. And then you got some surprises, and we've seen a few of them here today, as Louisville, man, did they make a statement in the opening round in that battle for Atlantis. A absolute mauling of number 14 Indiana earlier today in Nassau. We're talking a 89-61 upset of the number 14 team in the country, the Indiana Hoosiers. Again, Louisville, not even ranked this year. Many people know that Louisville, it's a new era, it's a new head coach. They are going to have to reboot in a lot of ways. They thought they'd be a little bit more competitive, but we did not expect an 89-61 drubbing of Indiana, which is exactly what we ended up getting here today. And then, of course, the Zags, Gonzaga, who a lot of people had right up at the top of the board as far as teams go here, number 1, number 2 in the country. Well, Gonzaga versus West Virginia. Couple of mistakes late, and all of a sudden the number 3 Gonzaga Zags lose in overtime to West Virginia. Not something you thought you would see this early on in the season, but yep, they became the latest top 5 team to lose this week. And West Virginia, boy, oh boy, Coach DeVries there, who came over from Drake, brought his son, brought another top player from that organization, that program rather, and now West Virginia, as a 14.5-point underdog, pulled off the upset by erasing a 10-point second-half deficit, forced overtime, and ended up getting it done. Javon Small with a huge game as well, posting 31 points there for West Virginia. Let the fun begin, because we're just getting started. We got tons of other games that we're going to get to here tonight, as we've got the Blue Bloods in action in these tournaments, and we'll go over it all with you as Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. Happy pre-Thanksgiving Eve here, as we've got plenty going on across the sports landscape here, including 126 Division I basketball teams going at it. And we have already had a couple of upsets early today, and we've got a couple of games underway right now and a few more slated to start throughout the night here, proving to be a very busy college hoops day here as we get ready, of course, for the NFL tomorrow and, of course, rivalry week in college football here. We've had some great games over the first couple of days this week here of these tournaments in college basketball. And again, we mentioned we watched the Kansas Jayhawks getting points last night on a neutral site game in Nevada. They ended up beating Duke outright. We watched an unranked Louisville team today absolutely blast a number 14th ranked Indiana Hoosiers team. And then we saw number 3 Gonzaga fall early today to West Virginia in another upset. So we've got already plenty of upsets to go along with. How about UConn, the defending national champs, losing not just once, but twice now in Maui. Unbelievable. Some of these events that we've seen. We saw Michigan State in Maui go from world beaters to not such world beaters. We saw Colorado end up upending teams here out in Maui that you just didn't think were possible. So it is one thing I know for sure when it comes to college basketball is you just never know what you're going to get. However, we do have currently right now in Maui, Auburn taking on Memphis, and it really has not been much of a game, especially early. Auburn with a 47-31 lead over Memphis right now, about 15 minutes to go. It was 47-31 rather after the first. Memphis has come out and chipped into that lead, chipped into that deficit a little bit. 53-39 is what we're looking at there. We also see in Atlanta, Providence and OU are at the break. Providence up by a bucket there, 34-32. That looks like it's going to be a pretty good game there for the second half. Get ready for that. We did just see at the MGM Grand Arena in Nevada, Oregon, and Dana Altman handling business, getting it done against San Diego State, 78-68. And I'm telling you now, Dana Altman and this Oregon team are going to be a force to be reckoned with this year. Love Dana Altman, and I love the makeup of this team. Very tough, very physical, a lot of shooting. And not only did they handle business last night, they handled against a darn good Texas A&M Buzz Williams team, but they handled business against San Diego State, who handled Creighton with ease last night. So they move on now at the MGM. We also have a couple of other games still to come here tonight, and I'm looking forward to a few of them, especially some of these late night games. I will tell you, though, at the Suncoast Credit Arena in Fort Myers, South Carolina, up on Va-Tech. We got about 12 minutes to go in that one, 15-9. I took the under in that game. Under was 140.5. Both of these teams, well, scoring doesn't come easily. Both ended up losing a ton from a year ago. The transfer portal hit them hard. And right now you got a South Carolina team who's hitting about 27% of their three-point shots on the season. That's not good. But Virginia Tech also finding it extremely difficult to get scoring. So what will it all mean? I think it means a pretty easy under coming up a little bit as that game just tipped off here. So we'll keep an eye on that. We did see Iowa State crush Colorado at the Maui Invitational, 99-71. I don't think anybody was shocked by that. But Tennessee also handled business against UT Martin. They were laying 38.5 points. Did they get the cover? Yes, 78-35. Tennessee ends up handling their business. All right, we got a few other games we're going to keep an eye on, including Missouri and Lindenwood. That game is coming up here in about 10 minutes. It's a game that I also bet, and I laid it. Now 30.5 points, but Missouri at 5-1. Taking on Lindenwood. Missouri is really starting to come into their own. This is exactly the kind of game in which Missouri will win by 40 points easily. Lindenwood, not very good. Missouri going to look to take out a little bit of frustration on Lindenwood. So don't be afraid of some of these big numbers early on in the season. There are mismatches for a reason, and I do not see Missouri taking their foot off the gas under any circumstances. Creighton, we told you, lost last night to San Diego State. Well, their prize is to take on Texas A&M. That, too, is coming up here in just a couple of minutes. Creighton getting 3.5 points against Buzz Williams and Texas A&M. Of course, Kalkbrenner will be the big storyline there. That's number 21, Creighton, taking on number 20, Texas A&M. That, too, feels very much like maybe an under in that game there. We'll have to keep an eye as that gets ready to get underway. Also, in a battle of upstate New York teams, how about Syracuse getting ready to take on Cornell here? And Cornell dispatched Iona rather easily a couple of days ago. The Syracuse Orangemen, this is big brother, little brother. This game coming up at the top of next hour. Syracuse laying 8.5, and I don't know about that. We'll see what we get from this Syracuse team, but make no mistake, this is the national championship game for Cornell to beat Big Brother. That's exactly what they are looking to do. So couple that with a couple of late night games. Michigan Xavier a little bit later here today. We'll talk about Michigan State, North Carolina out at the Maui Invitational. Another game coming out of the loser's side that we're going to take a look at. Much more to get to, though. Game Time Decisions. We're just getting started on this Thanksgiving Eve.
He shouldn't need to hire outside help at this point to be able to help, let alone outside help, Joe, that used to work for him.
Until they get him out of the way, I just don't see how this gets any better. And like you said, who are you picking from? Because most people who know the league want nothing to do with the ownership group there with the Jets.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Fillet Indiana. They would smash
What?
Honestly.
Do you listen to yourself speak? That's not a reality question. They have not played each other. You are using hypothetical.
And they got embarrassed.
So many
if
teams
they
do.
Run that football. Yes, that's you're
but that's the thing, guys. No. Stop.
The only argument is Indiana is a decent football team and a product of their environment.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on this Thanksgiving Eve Wednesday, November the 27th. I'm Joe Raineri. Appreciate you stopping by. We got a loaded slate across the sports landscape here today. We've been talking plenty of college basketball underway, some great tournaments happening, and some big-time matchups still to come here tonight. We have a loaded slate on the ice tonight, too, I believe. 15 games in total in the NHL tonight, and loaded NBA action here. Exciting stuff here, getting ready to tip off the Miami Heat taking on Charlotte a night after, boy, they let one slip away against Milwaukee last night. What a comeback by the Miami Heat, just to fall a little bit short there in overtime. Now they got to take on the Charlotte Hornets, who are rested, and Miami got a great break last night, a late-time scratch with Giannis, but boy, did they come out flat. Weren't able to get it done, but now they got to go to Charlotte. They've had great success against Charlotte over the last couple of years. We'll see if they can get one back here tonight. You also have Atlanta taking on Cleveland. Cleveland now 17-1 on the season. There were some questions as far as whether Trae Young was going to be able to go here tonight. He is nursing a calf/Achilles, but as it turns out, it appears that he is going to go in that game here tonight. The Cavs at home now laying a smooth 10 points in that one. But the Hawks are just an absolute mess. They've lost 3 games in a row. Each one of those games, they lost by at least 10 points. And you know the Cavs, at 17-1 so far this year, they have been blowing out bad teams on a regular basis, winning by at least 10 or more points in 10 of their 17 wins. They're 8-2 against the number at home this season, and they are in great position to pick up another win and cover against the lowly Atlanta Hawks, who just can't seem to put it together. My goodness, what a terrible. They got to blow that up and start from scratch. I don't know what else to tell them. It is not working out at all for the Atlanta Hawks here. We'll see if they can get something else going. I do think a couple of other games going on here at the 7 o'clock hour. How about the Philadelphia 76ers getting ready to take on the Houston Rockets here? Now, this is all about a scheduling spot. We always say that handicapping the NBA is all about understanding the schedule. And the schedule for the Rockets is terrible. Now, the Rockets have been great. They started the season, 1-2. They are now 12-4, both straight up and against the spread since that 1-2 start. But this is a team that is coming off an overtime win on the road against the Minnesota Timberwolves last night in what was a very physical game. Then they had to hop on a plane now, and they got to head to Philadelphia to take on a Sixers team that hasn't played a game since Sunday. And they've had 2 full days of rest underneath. They finally figured out how to win a game, Philadelphia, which is always great. And they have had now some time once again to put together Paul George and Joel Embiid and Maxey and see if they can't get another one here tonight. Listen, if this was all things being equal, it would be very hard to look at Philadelphia. But at this point, it's very hard to overlook this spot, even with a good team playing a bad one right now. Houston also 5-13 straight up when playing on back-to-back days under Udoka as their head coach over the last couple of seasons. They're also 1-7 straight up when playing back-to-back games, facing teams that, shall we say, are less than 500. So this is a big game here for the Philadelphia 76ers at home with an opportunity to get right against a very, very good Houston team. The spot is perfect for Philadelphia to take advantage. If you took the 5.5 points, I do not blame you. So I think that's a good opportunity for Philadelphia and for you guys to back a dog here tonight. It's disgusting, but it's a bet that I think you're going to have to make. We've got Dallas also, no Luka, but Dallas refuses to go down because there is no Luka here. They're taking on the New York Knicks coming up next hour. We'll have more on that game, plus the Lakers, plus the Clippers, so much more. Come back and join us here on Game Time Decisions.
he shouldn't need to hire outside help at this point to be able to help him, let alone outside help, Joe, that used to work for him.
Until they get him out of the way, I just don't see how this gets any better. And like you said, who are you picking from? Because most people who know the league want nothing to do with the ownership group there with the Jets.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Fillet Indiana. They would smash them.
Honestly. Do you listen to yourself speak? That's not a reality question. They have not played each other. You are using hypothetical.
And they got embarrassed.
So many
if
teams
they would
do.
have won that football, yes, that's you're
but that's the thing, guys. No.
The
Stop.
The only argument is Indiana is a decent football team and a product of their environment.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in here. Game time decisions on this beautiful Thanksgiving Eve here. I'm Joe Raineri. Appreciate you stopping by as we have just all sorts of things going on across the sports landscape here, getting ready for a Thanksgiving slate of NFL games. And in addition to that, we've got college football rivalry week. Great college basketball action here, tournaments all around the country, NBA full slate here tonight. And let's not forget, we do have some NHL games here. I mean, my goodness, plenty of games, 15 exactly. Nobody better to break down some of these games than our good friend George Kurtz in the house. Kurtz, happy Thanksgiving Eve to you and the family. And the NHL scheduling is wild. I mean, just absolutely wild here. You get 2 games last night. We get 15 games here tonight, and I'm all for it. So speaking of wild, let's talk about the Minnesota Wild taking on the Buffalo Sabres here. That game coming up top of the hour. Minnesota coming off back-to-back losses. I think, Kurtz, for maybe just the first or maybe just the second time this season here. Do they bounce back in this spot against Buffalo?
I think they probably do, Joe. And by the way, happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. Enjoy your festivities over the next couple of days. I know I will, as long as I'm not choking on my turkey tomorrow watching the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with Minnesota, they lost Kaprizov in that game versus Edmonton Friday night, and he missed one game on Sunday. So I think it's a big reason why they've struggled a little bit of late here. Kaprizov might be your early contender for MVP. You know, he is playing that well here, but he is back. Came back on Monday, didn't do anything. Make sure he needs a game to get back into it. I think he'll be back up in the flow tonight. The Sabres get back Tage Thompson. He's been out a couple of weeks here. He's their top offensive player. That's the reason I'm going to take the over in this game. 5.5. So give me the over. Do I like the Wild? Of course. They're the better team. Although Buffalo, I think they're 7-3 in their last 10. They are playing better hockey. They're getting better goaltender with Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, maybe my favorite name in the NHL to pronounce there. So they're not a terrible team here, but Minnesota is the better team. Give me the Wild, but I don't love it.
I don't get. I mean, Buffalo just swept 3 California teams on that West Coast trip. And you're right, Kurt. 7 of their last 9, and 3 of their previous 7 games have gone to overtime. What, am I not betting the draw in this game? Just out of curiosity, why not? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, 3 out of the last 7 have gone to OT, which is kind of crazy.
It is kind of crazy, but that also lets you know how well that Luukkonen's playing, because you're not going to get many 5-5 overtime games, right? You only get 1-1, 2-2, 3-3. Those are overtime games here. But Luukkonen has stabilized in net for the Sabres here. So I don't mind that play. Gustafsson has been great for Minnesota, by the way. I don't want to say a surprise, but it's taken a couple of years for him to play to this level. We've been waiting for this, and he's playing that way for Minnesota as well. Minnesota's more of a defensive team than Buffalo. Buffalo's more of even their best defenseman, Dahlin, Power, Byron, good defenseman, but they're more on the offensive side of things. They don't play. Sometimes they can get into those shootouts here. That's my only worry about this, but that's also why I like the over.
So the Jim Montgomery era got off to a winning start. Usually that happens, right, with coaches getting fired, new coaches coming in. The Blues went to Madison Square Garden and just hammered the Rangers there. And now they've got to take on a New Jersey Devils team that has won 3 straight, 5 of 6, 8 of 10. Oh, yeah, and 10 of 13. So something's got to give here, Kurtz. What do you think we're getting?
Well, listen, the Devils are one of the best teams in the East, especially not named Florida, right? This is a really good team. People, you may be thinking, the Devils last year were terrible. Well, they had all the injuries last year. Everybody got hurt. Hischier, Hughes, Hamilton, and they didn't have any goaltending. They've stabilized the goaltending with Markstrom. Even the backup, Jake Allen's a really good backup there. One of the best tandems in the NHL here. They're healthy. They're playing well. I mean, I think the Devils win the game. I'm not laying 230. That's the bottom line. I can't lay 230, and I don't feel great about it for a parlay, which everybody knows I love my parlays here, but I don't feel great about putting it in a parlay here. Maybe take the goal line at -112. Maybe you want to take an anytime goal scorer. Hischier did have the hat trick, the natural hat trick on Monday, so you maybe want to go back to the well there. I mean, Jack Hughes would be fine here. St. Louis, they get that broad smattering. It could be Kyrou, it could be Buchnevich. You never know who's going to step up game in and game out. Listen, I like the Devils here. I do. I think they're going to win the game. I like the over, but I'm not laying -134 either. So this is a game where, as of right now, either you're taking the goal line, hope the Devils win by 2, or you're probably leaving it alone.
As this for a stat for you. Ready for this, Kurtz? Home favorites of $2 or more that are coming off a win. They're 20-3 this year, and they have scored 4 or more goals in 21 of those 23 games. Over, team total over, home favorites. Oh boy, Kurtz, that's going to suck me right up into having to play the Devils team total, which I'm guessing is what, 3.5?
3.5.
If I was It is 3.5. Well, guess what George is playing now that I just sucked him right up into that.
Yeah,
all right,
2.5. You don't be on it all day.
Well, I'd even lay the extra juice here. All right, so let's talk about the Bruins and the Islanders now. We know the firing of Jim Montgomery, of course. Boy, it didn't take him long to get there. But Sacco takes over. Bruins offense, great. Gets a win there in the first game. What do we do with your Islanders, though, in this spot? Total was still, 5.5 in this one?
Yeah, the Islanders are almost always 5.5. You're rarely going to see anything higher than that. The Islanders don't score a lot of goals here, not on a normal night anyway here. I'm on the Bruins tonight, so let's get that out of the way. Only because you give me plus money. You give me plus money with Boston. Boston and the Islanders are pretty much the same team, right? Boston has better high-end players at Marchand and Pasternak. The Islanders may be the better overall team, better goaltender there. But you're going to give me plus money with Boston. Let's go. The key for this game, by the way, is you want the Islanders to be up in the third period. All right, we're not being sarcastic here. We're not joking. The Islanders suck at holding leads in the third period. 4 of the last 5 games, they've had a lead in the third period, and they've lost. So you want the Islanders to have that lead, and then you want to hammer Boston in the third period. You'll get a great in-game number, right? Because you'll get plus, 180, 160, whatever it might be. And the Islanders have been horrific all season long at holding third period leads here. So like I said, I'm on Boston pregame because of the plus money here. These are 2 pretty much even teams. I'll take my chances here. But if the Islanders are up in the third period, I'll take the bigger time plus money with Boston there as well.
So I think the Bruins were blanked in their last game, I believe. And I think over their last 3 games, when they have been blanked, that next game, they have scored a goal in the first 10 minutes in every one of them. So it's interesting, Kurtz, because the last 7 meetings between the Islanders and the Bruins, they've all gone over. They've all featured 6 goals or more, which is ironic, given the fact, to your point, that these things are always 5.5. And but because of that, they've gone over a whole heck of a lot here. What are we doing with my Florida team? That seems to, they can't even be, they've owned Washington and they couldn't beat Washington. They don't seem to be able to beat anybody here except Toronto. I mean, that's got to feel better for them here tonight, right? Toronto's got to be an easy win.
No Austin Matthews tonight. There was some thoughts that he might return tonight. He will not. I think he needs a couple more practices, so maybe we see him on Friday. No NHL games tomorrow on Thanksgiving. Normally, you're taking Florida, right? You're not even thinking about it. You're taking Florida here. They always beat Toronto, right? Toronto has played really, really well without Matthews. You know, maybe they're playing more of a defensive game. They're getting good, solid goaltending from Wolves and Stallars. I know Florida is I mean, they're slumping, right? This is a slump. We don't care about their slump. It's, it's a slump. It's 4 games, whatever. No big deal here. Still, I can't bet against Florida. You don't want to bet the game? Don't bet the game. Leave it alone here. But if I'm not taking Toronto to win, even though I think they'll put up a fight here. But I do like Florida to bounce back out of their little slump here and sort of beat the team they always beat, which is the Toronto Maple Leafs.
5.5 is interesting, too. And who the hell are the Blue Jackets to be favored against the Montreal Canadiens at home here, Kurtz? Didn't we just see this last week? I think Montreal won 5-1 in Montreal, though.
I think the only reason because that caught me off guard, too. And I took Montreal, by the way. Montreal played last night. That's the only reason. Same thing with Vancouver, by the way. Pittsburgh, that's another good number that I like for Vancouver, but they both played last night. That's why we're getting a friendlier number.
All right, stay there, Kurtz. I got some other questions for you here. We got plenty more games to talk about. Game Time Decisions continues here on the grid.
He shouldn't need to hire outside help at this point to be able to help him, let alone outside help, Joe, that used to work for him.
Until they get him out of the way, I just don't see how this gets any better. And like you said, who are you picking from? Because most people who know the league want nothing to do with the ownership group there with the Jets.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Fillet Indiana. They would smash them.
What?
Honestly.
You listen to yourself speak. That's not a reality question. They have not played each other. You are using hypothetical.
And they got embarrassed.
So many
if
teams
they would have
do.
Won that football, yes, that's you're
but that's the thing, Johnny. No.
The only argument is Indiana is a decent football team and a product of their environment.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on this Thanksgiving Eve. Very happy holiday to you and yours. We've got a 15-game slate in the NHL here tonight. George Kurtz stepping back in with us as we've got a few more of these to go over, Kurtz. Then we'll break down your Cowboys who are playing on Thanksgiving tomorrow. It'll be a short breakdown because absolutely nobody's going to watch it. But how about the Stars here tonight? Coming off a 6-4 loss, I believe, to Carolina. That was on Monday. They, too, looking to avoid the dreaded back-to-back losses, although it doesn't happen very often with Dallas. They've already beaten Chicago, I think, twice this season. They've also beaten them 13 of the last 16. I mean, they've covered the puck line in both times that they beat them here, and in fact, 10 of the last 13 over Chicago, they've won by more than one goal. What? Just puck line? What are we doing with this one?
Either go with puck line, you want to put him in a parlay. Dallas should win the game. No Rupe Hintz tonight. He's out for those wondering. But Chicago's a bad team. You took him bottom 5, bottom 7 team here at best. Connor Bedard is not doing much of late here. He'll be a superstar, but it's not happening this year, at least not right now. So we'll see. But Chicago's a team. Maybe in a couple of years they pick it back up again with the Blackhawks. Stars are a team for now, right? They're a team that could threaten to win the Stanley Cup. They're a good team here. Love the Stars tonight. Like that's the one game where you can say, hey, if you're going to bet my house on who's going to win a game, I mean the Stars. Stars will beat the Blackhawks here. So like I said, we can put them in a parlay or take the goal line.
I'm interested in one of these couple of late games we want to get into, but I think the Kings in Winnipeg is interesting. Hellebuck in net for Winnipeg, and everybody has been betting Winnipeg. The problem is the line flipped. I saw Winnipeg opening up as the favorite, and now I am seeing the Kings as a slight favorite here. So interestingly enough, it doesn't appear that there's any sort of crazy, I don't see any injuries or anything like that, but what are we thinking here? Winnipeg on the road, or do you think the Kings hold serve?
I was going to double check that Hellebuck's in net. Make sure they didn't. Yeah, Hellebuck's in net here, so no worries there. Kings haven't announced their goalie yet, but we do think it's going to be Rittich here. Not that it matters. We don't really care who the Kings put in net. Last I checked, this game was actually even, 1-10 apiece here. So they may have changed it now. Have they? Where are we? It's still 1-10 apiece here. So that makes me think of Jets. Jets are the better team, but I do wonder why. Now this is the third. I think it's the third straight game for Winnipeg in 3 different time zones. So maybe that's part of the reasoning here. But it's not like they played 3 straight days. They had a day off in between here. So I don't think that's a killer. But I'm on the Jets. You're going to make it even. I'm going to have to take the Jets. They're one of the best teams in the NHL. They're a team. They're great during the regular season. I know that. I only need to know about the Jets. Can you play in the playoffs? That's what we always worry about with the Jets. I know you're going to play great during the regular season. Give me the Jets tonight.
It makes 0 sense here, Kurtz. How in the world are we a coin flip game with a Jets team that are 18-4 taking on an 11-win Kings team? Like I don't understand. And you mentioned it, Hellebuck. This line stinks. But we were just talking about the Colorado game at home taking on the Vegas Golden Knights. This is always a fun game, right? It's the second meeting, I think, between these two teams. And it was an 8-4 drubbing, by the way, by the Golden Knights in the, I believe it was the first game for the season for both here. I think that's what started the season. What are we thinking here, though, with this game? Because they seem to be a pretty decent favorite here.
Now, when you're thinking about Colorado, they're struggling in net. We know they can score goals. McKinnon, Rantanen, They got some depth back now. Lakinen's back. Nichushkin's back. They can score goals. They can't keep them out of their net. Defense is once again geared more towards the offensive side here, and the goaltending has sucked. All right, it doesn't matter who they put in net. Gorgiev, Anunin, Patrick Roy ain't coming back. He's coaching the Islanders. He ain't coming back, but they need him. I think, by the way, Joe, I think the Avalanche have to make a move for a goaltender. Even someone John Gibson of the Ducks. I think they would move. I think Gibson would be moved from the Ducks. He's not the goaltender he used to be, but still he's better than what Colorado has. And Anaheim has to realize, Gibson's at the end of the rope here. Let's move him here. The Golden Knights have struggled on the road somewhat here, but still, they're the better team here. I think my favorite play tonight is the over for obvious reasons. We just said it. Knights struggle on the road, and the Avalanche can't keep the puck out of the net. I would probably still go with the Knights to win the game. I'm getting plus money. That's the reason why. You just don't know what you're going to get with Colorado. They might win 6-2 tonight. They might lose 7-4. You just don't know. I don't know what the goaltending is going to do there, which is why my favorite play is more of the, once again, go the over here. I'm going to like a lot of anytime goal scorers in this game. Like I said, maybe you want to go McKinnon. I'd probably go more to Rantanen. He's the true goal scorer there. But I think there's going to be a lot of goals in this game. I'm thinking double digits. I think it's going to be a prime game, by the way. If you're up that late, to go in game. If we don't get no goals the first 5-7 minutes, we'll get that number to come down here, and then we can hammer it in game as well.
All right, good stuff there. 15 games on the ice here tonight. 3 games tomorrow in the NFL, Kurtz. And that middle game will feature your Dallas Cowboys taking on The New York Giants, who have announced that Drew Lock will be under center. Why? Because, well, the offensive line got Tommy Cutlets killed in that game last week. So, hey, we saw the rush that we thought we were going to get, or that we have gotten as a backup in the past. Does that continue? Or do the Giants just do what everybody else has done and just drub Dallas at home?
Dallas has not won a home game since the end of the regular season last year. I think they lost 5-6 straight here. I don't think the Giants can't drub Dallas. I think it's impossible unless Dallas just, they're all hyped up on tryptophan from the turkey. I think Dallas does win the game. I liked it a lot better when Cutlets was playing. All right, now we don't expect him to play there because I think Micah Parsons is going to make this life miserable for any Giant quarterback. That line can't block anybody. He should be in the backfield all day long here. Giant defense, though, is not bad. I think they'll keep the game somewhat close. Locke could hit some big plays. Neighbors, he was the squeaky wheel, right? I really do like his yardage. I think it was over 62.5 last time I checked here. I think he gets that. His receptions was over 6.5. That's 7 catches. I may not like that as much, but Trayvon Diggs probably not playing tomorrow, so he's going up against secondary Dallas cornerbacks.
God, that game is going to be so ugly. 37.5 is a total here, Kurtz. Is it just an under?
Got to go over.
You're
It's
gonna go
37.5. I can't go under. No, I'll go over. Maybe the Giants don't show up and Dallas scores 24, 27 points. So that's all I need. I'll get the over.
No. Giants are on a milk carton because they didn't show up last week against Tampa either. So they might not show up in Dallas. Kurtz, enjoy the holiday. Happy Thanksgiving to you, my man. Let's cash those tickets. Game Time Decisions on the grid.
He shouldn't need to hire outside help at this point to be able to help, let alone outside help, Joe, that used to work for him.
Until they get him out of the way, I just don't see how this gets any better. And like you said, who are you picking from? Because most people who know the league want nothing to do with the ownership group there with the Jets.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Fillet Indiana. They would smash them.
What?
Honestly.
Do you listen to yourself speak? That's not a reality question. They have not played each other. You are using hypothetical.
And they got embarrassed.
As so many
if
teams
they would have
do.
Won that football. Yes, that's you're
but that's the thing, guys.
correct.
No. Stop.
The only argument is Indiana is a decent football team and a product of their environment.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in here. Game Time Decisions on this Thanksgiving Eve. I'm Joe Raineri. Appreciate you stopping by here. We got so much going on here tonight. College basketball tournaments all over the country taking shape. Auburn in the process of absolutely destroying Memphis right now in Maui. We've got some great games still coming up here. Beginning next hour, we'll dive into those. Plenty of college basketball talk, but let's not forget, we have rivalry week in college football, week 14. And of course, in addition to Ohio State taking on Michigan, we've got Texas taking on Texas A&M. So there is a ton of possibilities here as Thanksgiving approaches in college football here to decide not only what the top 12 teams are that will be playing in the very first 12-team college football playoff, but a lot of teams, the only way that they have a shot at getting in is through their conference championship. And Texas A&M, who's going to need a little bit of help since they threw up all over themselves and lost a 4-6 Auburn team last week, well, they'll have an opportunity to right the ship against Texas come this weekend. And what makes this very interesting is the fact that Texas, who we just saw coming in as the number 3 team in the country in the latest committee rankings, Texas loses this game, they're still in the playoff. So as you can see, that number hovering around 5.5. Listen, College Station is not an easy place to play. I don't care who you are. Texas knows this, but Texas also knows that they don't need to win this game in order to get into the playoff. The winner of that game will play Georgia for the SEC championship. And again, Texas A&M going to need to win out in order to be able to get it done and a chance at the playoffs. But Georgia already in. And they play Georgia Tech, by the way, this week, which is going to be maybe the least, the anticlimactic game of the SEC. But you can see with Georgia being a pretty decent-sized favorite there at 19.5 points. Yes, I don't think Georgia's going to leave anything to chance there. So the other game of interest is going to be, with really nothing at stake, is Oregon, who's already clinched the spot in the Big Ten championship. Ohio State can assure themselves a rematch with Oregon by beating Michigan. However, if that doesn't happen, there is a mess across the board here with so many different opportunities for other teams to jump in. But let's just assume that Ohio State beats Michigan. Well, Oregon is a 19.5-point favorite over Washington. And again, this game means absolutely nothing to Oregon as far as the chance at playing for a national championship in the playoffs. So Oregon, you've got to wonder, how much are they going to leave out on the table for a game in which they haven't exactly had a great string of luck against Washington over the last couple of years. In fact, Kalen DeBoer, the now Alabama head coach, who was the head coach at Washington, certainly had the number of Oregon when he was coaching there. But Oregon has already played Ohio State, has already beaten them. They already know that what's coming here. But the problem is, do we all really have the confidence that Ohio State is going to run over Michigan to the tune of what? 21 points? They're laying 21 points. If either of those teams lose, Oregon or Ohio State, that opens the door for a whole lot of other possibilities in the Big Ten, including Indiana. The ACC also interesting. SMU is already in. If Miami beats Syracuse, they're in. Clemson would get in by beating South Carolina and hoping that Syracuse beats Miami. I doubt very much that is going to happen, but anybody that has watched Mario Cristobal over the years here with Miami, you know there's always a possibility of Miami losing a game that they shouldn't. But that Clemson and South Carolina game is interesting because I'm not 100% sold that Clemson wins that game. And I am not 100% sure that South Carolina doesn't have an outside shot at getting in as a 3-loss SEC team if they handle business against Clemson. So a lot still to be determined in college football. It's a huge week. It's a huge another hour. It's coming up next here on The Grid.
He shouldn't need to hire outside help at this point to be able to help him, let alone outside help, Joe, that used to work for him.
Until they get him out of the way, I just don't see how this gets any better. And like you said, who are you picking from? Because most people who know the league want nothing to do with the ownership group there with the Jets.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Fillet Indiana. They would smash them. Honestly.
You listen to yourself speak. That's not a reality question. They have not played each other. You are using hypothetical.
And they got embarrassed.
As so many
if
teams
they
do.
Won that football. Yes, that's you're
but that's the thing, guys. No. Stop.
The only argument is Indiana is a decent football team and a product of their environment.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in hour number 2 here of Game Time Decisions on the Sports Grid Network. I'm Joe Raineri. Happy pre-Thanksgiving Eve here as we are getting ready for a big slate across the board in the NBA here tonight. Plenty of action getting ready to tip off. Couple of 7 o'clock tips, including the Hawks and the Cavs. You've got the Bulls and Magic, followed by the Rockets and the 76ers, which is a game I am invested in, as I think just the spot screams Philadelphia, which I know is a difficult thing to do for a 3-13 team at home. But I do think this is the time to buy low on the Philadelphia 76ers. The spot is just horrific for Houston, who had a crazy overtime win last night for the NBA Cup in Minnesota. Then they had to hop on a plane, come here to Philadelphia, and take on a Sixers team that's had the last 2 days off, hasn't played since Sunday, who's gotten a little more assimilated with one another. I do think it's a great opportunity to buy low on Philadelphia tonight in this game. They are currently getting 5.5 points. The Miami Heat are also getting ready to tip off here, and the Heat are in a back-to-back spot as well against the Charlotte Hornets. They were at home against the Bucks last night, and they were flat early and often. They dug themselves a ridiculous hole, and it didn't make any sense because they got good news. Giannis was a late scratch last night in that game, and they still weren't able to make the comeback, although they did a great job in the second half getting themselves back in that game, but fell a little bit short. Now they have a big game against Charlotte as they try to get back to 500 here. I expect them to come out firing in this one here. I do think the last time that they played Charlotte, they won by 8 points. I do think, especially in the first half, I do think the Miami Heat are worth a look in that game there. Of course, you've got the suddenly red hot Orlando Magic, right? All of a sudden have figured out how to win some games without Paolo Banchero. They are at home taking on the Chicago Bulls. Looking forward to seeing that, although I don't know that I'd be running to the window and laying 9.5 points with Orlando, but they have certainly shown an ability here to score and score often here. But Chicago coming off a game in which they dropped 127 points on the Washington Wizards, 127-108. They ended up winning that game. I don't think there's any reason why they can't. But when you look at Orlando, last game against Charlotte, 95-84, win. Detroit, 111-100, win. At the Lakers, they won, dropping 119 points. In fact, you got to go back to the 20th. It's the last time they lost a game, and that was on the road against the Clippers, 104-93. They are absolutely rolling. And that is fun for the Orlando Magic, who will have certainly a lot of advantages in this game. So that one's getting ready to go. New York and Dallas, I think, is going to be interesting as well. The Knicks, I mean, what can you say about the Knicks? The Knicks coming off a game in which they dropped 145 points on the Denver Nuggets in Denver. That was 145-118 a couple of nights ago. Now they got to take on Dallas, who without Doncic coming off a overtime game against Miami, went to Atlanta, was down by 18 heading into the fourth, and then Kyrie took over, and they eventually won that game 129-119. I fully anticipate Kyrie Irving, by the way, single-handedly coming into this game and probably destroying everybody. He's a one-man wrecking crew. But the Mavs are again without Luka. They won't have Gafford. They won't have Klay Thompson. The Knicks are healthy, other than, of course, the guys that have not been healthy all year long. You got Jalen Brunson. You've got your full complement here for the Knicks. There is legit no reason why the Knicks should not, after dropping 145 points, have some success against this Dallas team. But, as we've seen, Dallas, as long as Lively and Kyrie are in the lineup, they are very much capable of doing some damage here. So would not shock me if they, in fact, do keep this game close and maybe as a home dog win that game outright. I also find the Phoenix Suns game tonight against the Brooklyn Nets interesting, as everyone's celebrating the return. Of course, they had Durant back in that last game, the Phoenix Suns, and Bradley Beal's playing, and they 127-100 last night. They end up beating the Lakers. Well, now they're welcoming the Brooklyn Nets, and the Nets are a cash cow for those that have not been paying attention. The Brooklyn Nets continue to cover numbers and continue to cash tickets. The Nets are 12-6 against the number. They're 8-3 against the number on the road. They are rested. In fact, their last game, they didn't do much. They just beat the Golden State Warriors in Golden State, 128-20 as a 13.5-point dog. They did the same thing with Sacramento. They were a 10.5-point dog, and they won that game outright, 108-103. Now, they are 7-1-1 against the number on their last 9 on the road. They've covered 6 of those games by at least 6.5 points or more, winning games outright. And now all of a sudden, on the second of a back-to-back, we're supposed to be laying 8.5, 9 points with the Phoenix Suns? Yeah, I don't buy it. Brooklyn Nets all day for me in this one. I'd be very interested to see for Phoenix who's playing and who's not playing in this one. And, of course, the Oklahoma City and Golden State Warrior game will be the game that folks will be tuning into. The late-night game of the night with Oklahoma City laying 2 points on the road at the Chase Center, taking on the Golden State Warriors, who we just mentioned, unfortunately, couldn't get it done there against the Brooklyn Nets. But the Thunder, looks like they're going to get Isaiah Hartenstein here tonight on the court after he signed a 3-year, $87 million deal. And, boy, that's going to be an interesting matchup here. He missed the first 15 games of the season with that broken left hand, but he did debut a couple of games ago, and he has put up, 13 points and 14 rebounds versus Portland. Then he just put up 19 points and 10 boards against Sacramento. Now, this is going to be a tougher matchup, But with no Chet Holmgren, Hartenstein averaging about 30 and a half minutes, is there any reason why we're not looking at his over 20 and a half points and rebounds? Because he's going to get the minutes, he's going to get the time. And quite honestly, who do we trust on Golden State to be able to go toe-to-toe and limit him? He's playing a big role for this Oklahoma City team here. I like his props here tonight. Points and rebounds, also individually, not a bad look here as they are a favorite against the Golden State Warriors. And after Denver gave up 145 points to the Knicks, what do you think they're going to do against Utah here tonight? Yeah, I think there's going to be a Denver first half. There's going to be a bet in my future here tonight. I think they come out firing against the lowly Utah Jazz. So we got plenty of NBA action here tonight. We still will dive in this hour. Plenty of NFL, including the 2 games tomorrow. The other game is the Giants and the Cowboys. But we got much more coming up. Game Time Decisions continues on the...
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on this Thanksgiving Eve. Want to send you and your family a very happy Thanksgiving. And, of course, we hope it's a profitable weekend here as we've got plenty of action across the board over the next 4 and 5 days. NFL tomorrow will be the focus, of course, like it is each and every Thanksgiving. But tonight, we're in for a treat. Plenty of college basketball. Also, NBA, we just talked about, and 15 games on the ice for the NHL. Just tremendous scheduling by the NHL. 2 games last night, 15 tonight, no games tomorrow. Joe Madden, she is ready to go, though, without a doubt, ready to take the plunge into this 15-game slate. And we've got some interesting games coming up here, Joe, across the board. On the ice, I know the Blues have already scored against the Devils. The Hurricanes have already scored against the Rangers. And we've got no score with the Sabres and the Wild. But we do have the Bruins and Islanders coming up at 7:30. And I had George Kurtz on last hour, the Islander homer, and he's not even betting on the Islanders tonight here. Are you leaning with them, or do you think Boston's the right side?
I do think Boston is the right side. You look at Korpisalo here coming out for the Boston Bruins, and he's been the better goal tender between him and Swayman out there for Boston. I do think Boston has had that uptick with the coach firing. Jim Montgomery shouldn't have been fired, but this team is rallying together, and they're winning these in defensive battles. I think they can keep the Isles under their team total of 2.5, and that will give you plus money, Joe, at plus 120. But I also love that first period under 1.5 goals. I think this one starts off slow, and you mentioned this weird scheduling. So the NHL is off tomorrow, but you look at the Friday and Saturday schedule, the amount of teams that have road and home games on Friday and Saturday is insane. These teams are going to go through a lot of travel over the next couple of days. So there's going to be definitely some advantages to look at on the Friday and Saturday slate.
Yeah, no, there definitely is. That game coming up at, looks like the bottom of this hour here, Joe, 7:30, puck will drop, Islanders, Bruins. The Blue Jackets and Canadians, I had to take a double look, but I believe the Blue Jackets are a favorite. I guess only because it's the Canadians, though. But my goodness, what are we looking at in this one?
Yeah, but look at Columbus. Look at their last couple of wins. They were able to get a shootout win versus the Carolina Hurricanes in a high-scoring 5-4 game. And the game prior, they beat the Tampa Bay Lightning. That was in overtime as well, 7-6. So this team really has been stepping up. You've got Premier's coming into net here for Montreal tonight, and that's not a good spot for the Montreal Canadiens. What I'm looking at here is the Columbus Blue Jackets to come out strong and get those goals on the board. You look at their last 3 games, Joe, they've been able to score 17 goals over their last 3 while only allowing 11. Montreal on that second night of a back-to-back, Cole Caulfield's really going to come out strong. And there's talks Patrick Laney is on this trip with Montreal. I don't think he's in the lineup tonight. I haven't seen confirmation either way. I doubt he plays this one, but you look at Montreal, they're going to give it their all. I think you look at Columbus, you look at their team total over 3.5 goals at minus 118. You look at Monahan to get a goal here at home. He's coming in at plus 200. He's been fire at home. And then you don't have to worry about Columbus here in that favorite role, finding the value just in their team total over 3.5. Because if Montreal wins this, they're winning at 5-4. If Columbus wins it, they win it at least 4-3.
All right, so tell me, what are we doing here with my Panthers, who have made a career out of beating the Washington Wizards? Noah Ovechkin, and what happens? They come back from the West Coast, Joe, and Washington beats them. They can't beat anybody. Oh, what? Look, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. I know they can beat the Toronto Maple Leafs, Joe. What are we doing in this one?
They can. They absolutely can. But I don't want to step on a side here. We've got talks of Austin Matthews getting back in this lineup. I shake my head at to why they'd put him in the lineup tonight against such a physical team like the Florida Panthers. He doesn't need to come back into this atmosphere. I think there's been those playmakers really stepping up for Toronto, like Mitch Marner. I'm looking at him for the anytime goal tonight. He's coming in at plus 165. And if you want to take him here for the first goal for Toronto, I could see that coming into play. But for myself here in this one, I'm going to look at this game to go to overtime, Joe. I think this is a back and forth battle between these two teams. This game to go to overtime plus 340. And then I don't have to tell you that your Florida Panthers are going to lose another one. So I'm not doing it here on the show. Verhaeghe for the anytime goal at plus 230 as well as where I'll sit with this one.
Yeah, 1-6-0 stretch here for the Panthers. They've been outscored 16-11, 5-on-5, Joe, which is a big reason that they've been losing these games. But no Ryan Reeves, I believe, no Max Domi, and again, no Austin Matthews for Toronto. So if they were going to get right, this was the game in order to be able to do it. Talk to me about your Flames on the road taking on Detroit here. How are you looking at this one?
I've got to fade my Calgary Flames in this matchup. We know they're off the loss. I know. I hate doing it. They're off the loss to the Ottawa Senators. Dustin Wolf got the start in that one. They went up first, but the Sens rallied back and were able to get the win. We've got Dan Vladar in net tonight, and Dan Vladar is the weaker of the two goaltenders. We look here at Cam Talbot coming in for the Red Wings, and while Dan Vladar won't get a lot of pressure here from the Red Wings because they haven't been scoring a lot, Cam Talbot has been really stout in his career versus the Calgary Flames. He's got a 2.51 goals against average and a save percentage of .917 versus Calgary. So he's a goaltender that can stand on his head. I do think with Calgary being out here on the road with a back-to-back loading after Thanksgiving, you know, they have the Columbus Blue Jackets in Columbus on Friday and then at home versus the Pens on Saturday. I think when you look at that, a team on the road having to travel back home for Thanksgiving or wherever they live in America, and then going back, like where family is, and then going back out on the road, I think it's a huge disadvantage for this team. I think they want to get in and out of this game. The Red Wings are here at home, and then they play at home on Friday, and I think that's a great scheduling spot for this team. There's no rush to get home to family tonight after this game.
Yeah, it's an interesting time, that is for sure. But with such a loaded slate of games, we've got plenty of different options to look at. By the way, Blues 1-0 over the Devils, and you now might be the time to jump in on the Devils at even money if you didn't want to lay that big number. We'll have more, though, with Joe Madden as Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid.
He shouldn't need to hire outside help at this point to be able to help him, let alone outside help, Joe, that used to work for him.
Until they get him out of the way, I just don't see how this gets any better. And like you said, who are you picking from? Because most people who know the league want nothing to do with the ownership group there with the Jets.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Fillet Indiana. They would smash them. Honestly.
Do you listen to yourself speak? That's not a reality question. They have not played each other. You are using hypothetical.
And they got embarrassed.
So many
if
teams
they would have
do.
Run that football. Yes, that's you're
but that's the thing, guys.
correct.
No. Stop.
The only argument is Indiana is a decent football team and a product of their environment.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on this Thanksgiving Eve. Joe Raineri alongside Joe Madden as she joins us again. We've got 15 games going tonight in the NHL. A absolute loaded slate here, Joe. So let's keep going on down the list here of some of these games. By the way, 2-0. The Blues scored again quickly there. 2-0 against the Devils. 11 minutes to go in the first. Devils now going from a minus 220 pregame favorite to plus 175 dog here in New Jersey. So 2-0 Blues in that one. Talk to me here, Joe, about some of these other games we've got coming up here tonight on the slate. I mean, a absolutely loaded slate across the board. Is there one Penguins Canucks, for instance, there? I know a lot of people were looking at this saying it's a coin flip game. It's priced as a coin flip, but how do you approach it?
Yeah, it really is a coin flip game. We've got Vancouver on the second night of a back-to-back, and this Pittsburgh Penguins team has been so anemic offensively in some games, and then we look at their defense, and their defense has struggled out there. So we look at a Vancouver Canucks team that's coming off the win versus the Boston Bruins, but in that game versus the Boston Bruins, the Bruins locked down on defense. They held the Vancouver Canucks in the first period to 3 shots on goal. Second and third period, Vancouver was only able to get 6 shots on goal in those, and they still won 2-0. Now, looking at the Pittsburgh Penguins, who allow these shots, allow their goaltender to be absolutely peppered by that puck, you've got to think Vancouver's got to get more opportunities to hit Nedeljkovic here in this matchup. And then I think the Penguins, you look at that game, they're coming off versus Utah, Joe, and it was heartbreak. You saw Sidney Crosby get goal number 600, and the celebration came. But then they ended up losing that game 6-1. So not a real celebration like the Pittsburgh Penguins would have loved to have seen on his 600th goal night. So I do think the bounce back is coming here for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm going to take this one to go to overtime. I think the overtime is a really solid bet because you look at these two teams, the last 4 games between them have been 1-goal games, 2 of those going into OT. And then we look here, they've been higher scoring games. I think both teams score. The Penguins have to keep up offensively with the Vancouver Canucks. So I'm looking at that first period. Both teams to score in the first period coming in at plus 154. So you're getting plus money on the first period, both teams to score. You're getting overtime at plus 310. And Joe, I got to say, if you're looking at overtime bets on FanDuel, they're giving you a plus 310 number. Those are cashing more than they are not, like at a huge high rate. I wish I kept track of this season. As soon as it's plus 350 and plus 380, the books know that it has less of a chance of hitting those plus 310s. We got it last night with Montreal and Utah. It's just something that keeps cashing every time we look at those numbers.
If it ain't broke, we ain't fixing it, Joe. That's the motto here. Now, talk to me about this Washington Capitals team here, who, again, just coming off that win against my Florida Panthers. Now they're in Tampa taking on the Lightning. I see in Vasilevsky in goal. The money is coming in on Tampa here. How are we approaching this one?
I can't look at Tampa here. Tampa's coming off that big win versus Colorado in which they made Georgiev have that tantrum out there because they got, 6 goals on him. He fell apart in that game. But the Tampa Bay Lightning allow these goals to come in. And we look at the Washington Capitals. This team is fantastic out there on the road, Joe, and we're getting plus money on them. They're coming in right around that plus 120 mark on the money line. But I think this is another opportunity, just like Vancouver last night. The wrong team is in the favorite position, and I'm taking the reverse puck line here on the Washington Capitals, laying a goal and a half. That line has moved up to plus 300. You can even get it up to plus 320 on some books. So that is taking the Capitals into that favorite position, laying 1.5 on that puck line for great plus money. They've won their last 5 on the road. Charlie Lindgren expected here tonight. Vasilevsky's been allowing these goals to come in. Tampa's coming in off a huge win, 8-2. I just think it's just not the right spot for Tampa tonight.
So you are not under any circumstances trusting this Tampa Bay team against Washington. It's going to be interesting here. I'm not sure. Beginning of the end on the downhill for Tampa this season? Is the reign of terror over?
Yeah, it really does feel that way, Joe. I think this team is struggling out there. So, but you know what? Chicago, biggest upset of the night. Chicago Blackhawks to get the win over the Dallas Stars. Dallas, I don't like their scheduling spot. They've dominated Chicago. Woo! Lines have shifted. Connor Bedard for the goal. And the Blackhawks team total over 2.5.
That is gross, and I love it, Joe Madden. Happy Thanksgiving, Joe. Game Time Decisions continues on the grid.
He shouldn't need to hire outside help at this point to be able to help him, let alone outside help, Joe, that used to work for him.
Until they get him out of the way, I just don't see how this gets any better. And like you said, who are you picking from? Because most people who know the league want nothing to do with the ownership group there with the Jets.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Filet Indiana. They would smash them.
What?
Honestly.
Do you listen to yourself speak? That's not a reality question. They have not played each other. You are using hypothetical.
And they got embarrassed.
As so many
if
teams
they
do.
Won that football. Yes, that's you're
but that's the thing, Johnny. No. Stop.
The only argument is Indiana is a decent football team and a product of their environment.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. A very happy pre-Thanksgiving Eve here as we got Turkey Day coming up. We've got plenty across the board here in all sports. We've been talking NHL. We got a great NBA slate on tap here tonight. Of course, college basketball. But tomorrow is all about Turkey and the NFL. And what a slate of games we got coming up in this week 13 of the season. And Brady Cannon stepping in here to talk about a few of these games coming up. And Brady, love Thanksgiving and football. It's such a tradition. Nothing like it. And of course, listen, I also think that we know favorites over the years. It's been a chalky holiday. It's always a chalky day. Short week, Thursdays. Home teams, favorites. That's what we get. We might very well get that again this week, but this Detroit-Chicago game is interesting given the fact that I do believe that Dan Campbell and his quarterback here are now 0-3 on Thanksgiving together. And, of course, we all remember, at least I remember, because they knocked me out of Survivor last year, when Green Bay, in fact, ended up as an underdog beating Detroit outright on Thanksgiving. What do we think we're getting in this game here tomorrow with the Bears?
Yeah, we've seen money come in on the underdog. You talk about favorites typically, having their way on Thanksgiving, but we've seen the underdog take some money in a couple of these contests for Thursday. Number one being the first game on the schedule, that being at Ford Field in Detroit. You just keep trying to find a spot when the Lions are going to slip. I really thought it was going to be last week with the Colts. Laying a touchdown, even laying 7.5 on the road, didn't happen. Is it going to happen here where they have been unsuccessful on Thanksgiving against a division opponent? The Bears have been showing up in a big way last couple of games. Lose on a field goal at the end to the Packers, take Minnesota all the way to the bitter end in overtime. So, they have been a tough out as of late. My numbers come to about exactly where it is at a 10-point spread, which is now 9.5. I have it basically right at 10. No play in this one for me, Joe. I'm going to sit back and watch this one. The Giants and the Cowboys, I think all things, if this was pre-Daniel Jones and, Tommy DeVito and last week with Dallas winning outright, before all of that, I think there's a chance the Giants would have been a favorite in this game. And that's the way my numbers show, because they're not quite updated to what all the chaos that's gone on in the last, week or so. But we've seen money come in on the dog here too. Dallas opened up as a 4-point favorite. That didn't really seem, fair. It looks like Drew Lock is probably going to get the start now. I think that's probably an upgrade versus Tommy DeVito. I think you could have a competitive game here. I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants won. And then in the night game, you know what it's like down there, Joe, in South Florida. This team is not built to go to Lambeau Field on Thanksgiving and play in 20-some degree weather. I think that's the one I've already made a bet on, and I like that one a lot. The Packers laying just 3. It's a heavy 3. There are some 3.5s in the market now. I don't really mind a 3.5. My numbers come to 4.5, and there's a big difference between 3, 3.5, and 4, 4.5.
Boy, there's these. I think the most interesting one to me is that Miami Green Bay game, because call me crazy, Brady. It feels like this is such a buy low spot on Miami, because if I hear one more person quote a weather report to me in the temperature and how Tua can't win, I'm gonna, like, people still think it's the frozen tundra. Like, the field is heated. There's nothing frozen there. And not to mention, it's not going to be -10 like it was in Kansas City when they played in the playoffs last year. So I think if there's ever been a, sell high on Green Bay and buy low on Miami, it feels like this is the game we need to do this. I'm not laying 3.5 with Green Bay here. I just don't think it's a smart investment with Miami being healthier than they've been all year long.
Yeah, you're right about their health. They are very healthy. Green Bay's pretty darn healthy as well. Jair Alexander's still out, but he's been out for what seems like 2 months now, so hasn't really factored into their play as of late. But, as much as, Tua can come out there and the coach and everybody can talk about, hey, the weather's just something in your head. It's really not. It's in your blood. It's in your bones. It's easier said than done to just overcome that. And there's something from being down in Florida all the time. The other thing that I think is in play here is Miami just seems to beat up on the teams that they're supposed to. They beat the Rams. The Rams are a, average team, okay? They beat the Raiders and the Patriots. They are bad teams. They have not done well against good teams, and Green Bay is a pretty darn good team. The other thing is, if the weather is expected, or it does turn out to be like it's expected, low 30s, high 20s, in the evening, getting a little windy, you figure Green Bay's going to try and pound the ball on the ground. And Miami, not a great team against the run. They're pretty darn good against the pass, but against the run, they are very average. And when they go on the road, they are well below average, giving up almost 5 yards per attempt on the road, on the ground this year, are the Dolphins. So, that, I think everything just adds up for a bad situation here for the Dolphins, Joe.
And I think it all adds up to an under, which is exactly where I'm playing this game here, because you're right. I could see Romeo Doubs still in a concussion protocol. Don't know if he's going to be going for them. And if Tua does struggle, they can't become one-dimensional. They're going to have to try to run the ball. 47.5 felt like a little bit of a big number here on that Thanksgiving night game here. Thank goodness. We should have a couple of competitive games anyway. And then, of course, we head into Sunday, into what should be a great slate of games, and with some big underdogs, too, here. I mean, don't look any further. Your Raiders, Chiefs. Well, we know this. Forget what you know about both these teams. Again, am I laying 13 with Kansas City? I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to lay double digits against Carolina. Why am I going to want to do it against the Raiders?
Well, I tell you what, I'm not going to lay it either. There's no way. I mean, I made the game 9. When I crunch all the stats, it comes to 7. Kansas City beat the Raiders by 7 here in Las Vegas earlier this year, and there's basically no home field advantage at Allegiant Stadium. In fact, it's more of a Chiefs place. They've never lost there, including the Super Bowl. And now you can bump it up a couple ticks, when they play at home at Arrowhead. Maybe you go all the way to 10. That's still not 13 points. The fly in the ointment, though, is there's no Gardner Minshew. It's Aiden O'Connell, and worse than that, Desmond Ridder. So, no, I'm not going to run to the window with the Raiders and that one of those two guys behind center either. I mean, if it's Ritter, God forbid, maybe the line should be 17, Joe. No,
yeah,
I can't do it with those two quarterbacks. Otherwise, if it was Minshew, obviously the line would probably be different. But yeah, I'd be taking a hard look at the Raiders. But with O'Connell or Ritter, this will be a pass for me. Black Friday will be a shopping day, not a shopping for lines day.
Yeah, that's the Friday game there, of course. And again, they have not been great laying double digits no matter who they're playing. No. But I got to tell you, that Carolina team showed me a little something. Call me crazy, Brady. It looks like Bryce Young, the game is finally starting to slow down for him. He's making the reads. He's got, a young receiver in Leggett there. He's got Thielen. He's got Hubbard. And I've got to lay almost a touchdown with Tampa. What are you thinking?
Yeah, do you want to go? I mean, okay, the Buccaneers have played the Giants and the Panthers. That's not really tough sledding 2 weeks in a row, right? And they took care of business, no question. There was never a question about that game in New York. But now for the second straight week, a 6-point road favorite. I don't know if I want to drink that Kool-Aid too much. I'd probably be with you, Joe. My numbers tell me Buccaneers. The numbers are still not reflecting what Carolina has done the last couple weeks.
Correct. Yeah.
I don't want to lay it 2 weeks in a row with Tampa like that.
No, I don't either. And this is the time to make money on dogs that everyone's stuck a fork in. So, Brady, have a happy Thanksgiving, my man. Game Time Decisions returns after this.
You shouldn't need to hire outside help at this point to be able to help, let alone outside help, Joe, that used to work for him.
Until they get him out of the way, I just don't see how this gets any better. And like you said, who are you picking from? Because most people who know the league want nothing to do with the ownership group there with the Jets.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Fillet Indiana. They would smash them. Honestly.
Do you listen to yourself speak? That's not a reality question. They have not played each other. You are using hypothetical.
And they got embarrassed.
So many
if
teams
they
do.
Run that football yes, that's you're
but that's the thing, John. No. Stop.
The only argument is Indiana is a decent football team and a product of their environment.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in a very happy pre-Thanksgiving here as we are off and running here on the SportsGrid Network. Loaded slate here tonight. Plenty of NHL action underway right now. Plenty of college basketball underway. We've got that early slate in the NBA and, of course, getting ready for the NFL and Turkey. Which will take center stage, of course, tomorrow here on Thanksgiving. But coming up here, top of the hour, the man taking over for a little in-game live who's going to navigate all of it for you here. And there is plenty of it. Mr. Opposite Pick, Scotty Wetzel, stepping in here. And Scotty, we've got plenty of NBA action underway in the association tonight. A couple of these games interested me, including the 76ers getting points at home against the Rockets, who are in a terrible back-to-back spot here. The Miami Heat were not in a great spot either, losing that game to Milwaukee last night, now having to travel to Charlotte to take on the Hornets. But I know there's a lot of people watching the Knicks and Mavs, and that just tipped off here. The Knicks dropped 145 points on Denver the other night. I don't know who the hell's playing for the Mavericks, but Kyrie and Lively is. That's all I know. Is that enough?
Yeah, no Luka tonight. Once again, he's going to miss his third or fourth straight game, so no word on when he's going to come back, which is why the Knicks were road favorites. You're right, Joe. Kind of a weird night, right? You don't see it too often. You know, the NBA and NHL, they kind of rotate days. You know, one day the NHL will have 10, 12 games, and the NBA will only have 2 or 3. Then it's the NBA's turn. With Thanksgiving being, tomorrow, they kind of both have 10 games or more tonight. So it's great betting night. Really, it's good college basketball. I like the Knicks. You know how I feel about these games, Joe. We talked about it many times doing our shows together. You know, I love betting on teams that have their superstar players out. Case in point, Dallas 2-1 in the 3 games that they played so far. You know, without Luka. So I was tempted to take the 4.5, but I just said, you know what, give me the over 233.5. You said it. We put 140 plus on the board against Denver. You know, Dallas all of a sudden is not going to start playing defense. You know they're going to be able to score. So it's a big number. It is, but give me the over 233.5 in that game.
Over 233.5. I am with you there. What do we do with this Lakers-San Antonio game coming up 8:30, I believe, Eastern time tip there. Or do we believe in the Lakers here tonight in this spot?
You know, I tell you, it's more than I think it's more than we believe in San Antonio. I think this is a reputation line, Joe. I mean, the Lakers just aren't the same team on the road as they are at home.
Right. At
home, terrific. On the road, 3-5. And they've lost 3 in a row overall. Meanwhile, we got a Spurs team that, believe it or not, 8-3 at home this year. They're 6-2 their last 8 games overall. It's like, this is playing with the big boys now. And I know Popovich isn't around. He's out with health reasons. But LeBron always loves to get up for these games because he has so much respect for Popovich. But without him there, you know what? You want to give me 2 points with a Spurs team that's playing well at home. Like I said, 8-3. I'll take San Antonio plus the 2. I think they're the better team tonight.
Oh, I think maybe this Bronny James not available tonight. So that's
shocking.
That could be it there. Also, yes. I was this close. Good thing you told me that. Keldon Johnson also a go for the Spurs here tonight in that one there. There are some other very intriguing games coming up here tonight, Scotty, because you've got a Lakers team that you're scratching your head with here at some point. I also have a Brooklyn Nets team that all they do is cover games as ridiculous dogs. They're a ridiculous dog again here tonight against a Phoenix team that just played 24 hours ago. What are we doing here with the Nets?
Yeah, this falls into the category, Joe, of don't make this stuff harder than it has to be.
Yes, thank you.
We got one of the best spreads teams in Brooklyn against one of the worst spread teams in the Phoenix Suns, who are, as you mentioned, coming off their little mini Super Bowl here, playing the Lakers last night. So, Brooklyn, 12-5-1, literally second best spread team in the NBA, 12-5-1. Meanwhile, Phoenix is near the rock bottom at 6-11. You're getting over a touchdown, as we like to say here. That's back-to-back road wins. They just beat Golden State, coming up a nice performance. I got a little mojo going here. So, give me Brooklyn plus the 8.
I have no idea what they're doing. I'm with you, Scotty. I like it. Sometimes if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it's a duck, people. Don't argue with it. What about Denver, who got 145 points dropped on them by the Knicks at home? Now they get to take on Utah. This feels like I should be looking to back Denver early and often here. What do you think?
Yeah, this is, Mike Malone, head coach of the Nuggets, one of the guys you could kind of count on for keeping, you know what, you guys got to show up night in, night out. And when you don't, you get read the riot act. And he ripped his team pretty good. For an NBA head coach, which you rarely see, Joe, he laid into his team about not showing up, being unprofessional, the whole kit and caboodle. He basically just called them everything but dogs. So he's done this before, and Denver usually has responded. Don't like laying 9.5 on the road, right? It's a big, big number, but Utah stinks. And if Denver does come out with its A game, like I think they will after Malone did what he did after the Knick contest, I think they win by double digits. They beat the Jazz by 26 earlier this year at home in early November. I don't know if we're going to get that quite of a performance, 129-103, but I think they cover the 9.5, and I'm going to lay it with Denver tonight.
Yeah, I like it. Like it a lot there. All right, NHL here, Scotty. I asked Kurtz and I asked Joe Madden here, why in the hell is this a pick'em with Winnipeg and the Kings tonight?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, don't make this stuff harder than it has to be, folks.
Yep.
I got the hottest team in the NHL, 18-4, 9-3 on the road. I got a Kings team, Joe, that's lost 5 of its last 8. They're not playing good hockey. I got it at pick'em. Give me Winnipeg, right?
Scotty, it makes no sense here, but you also like the under in Anaheim and Seattle?
Yeah, I got 2 crazy plays. This one not so much crazy. I'll go with the under, 6-1 under for Anaheim last 7, Seattle 5-0 under, and give me San Jose plus 180. Ottawa is the only team San Jose has any success against, 5-1 their last 6 meetings.
All right, don't go anywhere, Scotty. I want to get your college basketball play. We'll do that next here, Game Time Decisions.
He shouldn't need to hire outside help at this point to be able to help him, let alone outside help, Joe, that used to work for him.
Until they get him out of the way, I just don't see how this gets any better. And like you said, who are you picking from? Because most people who know the league want nothing to do with the ownership group there with the Jets.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Fillet Indiana. They would smash them. Honestly.
Do you listen to yourself speak? That's not a reality question. They have not played each other. You are using hypothetical.
And they got embarrassed.
So many
if
teams
they would have won that football, yes, that's you're
but that's the thing, guys.
correct.
No.
The
Stop.
only
Please stop.
The only argument is Indiana is a decent football team and a product of their environment.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on this Thanksgiving Eve. Joe Raineri joined once again by Scotty Wetzel, who'll be taking over here in just a couple of minutes for In-Game Live. And we've got plenty of action here tonight, Scotty, including in college basketball, What a great couple of days it has been to kick off Feast Week here with these tournaments around the country. And I noticed you've got a game that you've got your eyes on coming up a little bit later here tonight with Rutgers and Alabama. Break it down for me.
Yeah. Let me go back to the hockey there for a second, Joe, just because we threw that in there real quick there before
Sure.
the break. But I like really two dogs in the NHL. I really thought San Jose, believe it or not, at plus 180 against Ottawa, and I like St. Louis because they had beaten the Devils 15 of the last 19 meetings. And lo and behold, they're out to 2-3 lead already. So that one looks like it's going to come through. And in San Jose, listen, they've been awful, right? I mean, they couldn't beat Topeka High on a Saturday afternoon. But against Ottawa, for whatever reason, they're 5-1 last 6 at home against Ottawa. And actually, San Jose 7-8 their last 15 games. So they're playing, halfway decent hockey. And overall, 5-6 at home are the Sharks. So maybe they're not an automatic go against as they normally are. But to the basketball, listen, I play over at Alabama games generally every single time, unless I find some crazy reason like last night against Houston. But over 161.5 with Rutgers, maybe 162, depending on where you do your shopping, right? Every one of Alabama's 6 games this year has gone over this total except one, and that was a blowout win against McNeese State where they called off the Dogs. I don't think they're going to get a blowout win, not to that point anyway, against Rutgers. Great kids, up and down the court, athletic kids. I don't know how this one stays under. There's a perception, Joe, that these kids can't play back-to-back games. And I think,
right.
The people that are 40 and older, like myself, think that way. But in reality, these kids are 20 years old. They play for 5 hours every single day on a basketball court. Playing back-to-back is really not that big a deal. And if anything gives up, it's the defense. Kids always have enough energy to play offense. That's not the problem. So it just leads into more overs, I think, than unders when they play these tournament games. So give me the over 161.5.
Yep. I love it, Scotty. I've just played it here myself. All right, get out of here. I'll be handing the baton off here. Have a very happy Thanksgiving, my man. Enjoy the games. Enjoy the festivities. We'll see you here in a couple of minutes for In-Game Live. All right, we've got updates, though, across the board here in some games, including in the NBA right now, where the Hawks are giving the Cavs a run for their money, 52-50 in the second quarter, about 5 minutes to go. We mentioned it, the Orlando Magic. Don't step in front of that train, folks. 54-40 right now. They are blowing the doors off of the Bulls in Orlando. The 76ers making a nice run here, 46-40. They're down at home against Houston. The Miami Heat taking advantage against the Hornets, 45-39 now. About 2 minutes to go before the break there. And the Blazers taking it to the Pacers, 48-43. And wouldn't you know it, the Knicks are getting boat raced by a depleted Dallas team, 18-6 right now, still in the first quarter. Plenty more to come, but the best bet here tonight, certainly, I think, is that Brooklyn Nets team getting 8.5, 9 points against the Phoenix Suns. They have been a cash cow. If it ain't broke, we are not fixing it under any way, shape, or form here. Again, plenty going on here tonight, including in the NHL, where we've got 15 games slated. All of this leading into tomorrow's NFL slate. It'll begin right around noon there with Detroit and Chicago. And don't forget, we also, tomorrow night, it's not the Egg Bowl anymore. It's not Ole Miss, Mississippi State. That's moved to Friday. Tomorrow, we get a little American Athletic. Memphis taking on number 18, Tulane. Memphis has been a terrible road team this year, but they certainly have shown to be more than capable of scoring some points here. They're getting almost 2 touchdowns against Tulane, who needs to win this game. Maybe a little help, and they'll have an opportunity to get that coveted rest of the Power 5 conference invite there as a top 12 team to make the playoffs. Everyone's giving it to Boise State. Tulane at number 18, still very much alive for an opportunity to play in the playoffs. So much still to be determined here. This is going to be a great weekend on behalf of all of us here at SportsGrid and GameTime Decisions. Want to wish you and your family a very safe and profitable Thanksgiving. We'll see you again on Friday. Enjoy the games.